Maybe it's just me, but I can kind of tell by listening to Just Alex, Monster, and to an extent JD had to say when they were, giving their thoughts on the barbed wire everywhere deathmatch that took place last night on Dynamite between Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho. Now, even though the match definitely lived up to its name, with everything pretty much covered in barbed wire, to me, it almost felt like, it almost felt like it was a letdown. Like, yes, some people will say it was entertaining. No doubt about it. People will say it was entertaining. Some would say it was violent. As heck. Some would even say it's one of the more violent matches they've seen in a while. But if there is one common denominator, is the fact that everybody felt that despite all that, it was insanely overbooked. I mean, not only was it insanely overbooked in their eyes, but it was also very predictable as to what the outcome was going to be potentially. I mean, the fact that you showcase Ruby Soho being the one with the key and the controller for the shark cage in which the JAS, the Jericho Appreciation Society, is going to be locked in at ringside. And everybody pointed out, Monster, Alex, JD, anybody else that's talked about it. Heck, even Jim Cornette is going to bring this up, believe it or not. Even Brian Zane will probably bring it up. That the moment you saw that, you pretty much knew that something was going to happen, and it did. Because when you look at the JAS being in the cage, it was missing one or two members. One, of course, is Sammy Guevara, who we'd see later on. The other, though, was Ty Conte. Why would you keep Ty Conte out, knowing what she can do? So you pretty much knew something was going to happen there. And despite the fact that, you got, the blood and everything almost right off the bat, but even before, around the time the bell rang, even though you got the blood, you got the usage of the barbed wire and all that, to me it felt like something was a little off. Now, I don't know if maybe it was the audience, maybe, because they were in the suburb of Atlanta, Duluth, Georgia. And everybody knows that Duluth, Georgia is, even to this day, NWA, WCW country. Even if that company is long gone, it is still, supportive of the promotion that helped put them on the map, as a region, as a territory. So I don't know if maybe it was, them and they just weren't used to the match that they were seeing. I don't know. But you knew something was up. You knew something was potentially going to happen. Because again, it felt that even though, like I said, they were using the barbed wire, as you would expect, on each other, it felt like you knew something was off. But not only did it feel like you knew something was off, but you also knew something was coming. Something that was going to Shanghai this event, this match, this blow off, if you will. And lo and behold, it did. Ty Conte comes down, attacks Ruby, Ruby fights back. Anna Jay comes down. Anna Jay then turns heel and sides with Ty, and all of a sudden, it's kind of, and I'll say this about it. It reminds me sort of what, it sort of reminds me of what I think it was Tiffany. It kind of reminds me of what, how, not what, but how almost instantly Taryn Tyrell turned heel when the Dollhouse debuted. It's like as soon as Jade, Mia Yim, and Marty Bell interfered on her behalf and helped her defeat Awesome Kong, all of a sudden it's like the way she just instantly snapped right over to her heel. It was kind of reminiscent of that. Not to that extent. Not to that extent. But it was close to it because of the way Anna Jay acted after she attacked Ruby. She was like, oh, too bad. And then the way they were high-fiving each other, the way, when Anna Jay held the controller and she just looked over at the JS and goes, hey, hey, hey. It almost feels like, they're going to it almost feels like what they're going to do with Anna and Ty. And I don't want to think Tony Khan or Kenny Omega or the booking team behind AEW would do this. But it almost feels like they're going to turn them into a team of dumb blondes. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. They're going to turn them into a team of dumb blondes. Like I said, it lived up to the hype, but, what it is, to get back on track here, is, I was just looking this up while I paused it because my mom had to go take a shower and, she was talking to me, so I had to give, to my attention there. Anyway, like I said, even though it's not on that level, if you will, it almost feels like, and again, I'm hoping Tony Khan and Kenny Omega and those in charge of booking, especially the women's division, I hope they're not planning to do this with Ty and Anna, but it's like the way they had them act just briefly, tonight, when they attacked Ruby, it's like, it's almost like they're going to position them to be like the Valley Girls of the JAS, the dumb blondes, if you will. I guess, I'll just put it this way, their own interpretation of like a Lay Cool or a Dollhouse, if you will. Because, they know that if you have women acting like divas in a company that people perceive as a true pro wrestling company, it's gonna it'll generate some massive heat on them, but still, I'm hoping they don't go that route of, okay, we'll make them the Valley Girls and everything, and also make them the dumb blondes. I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't. But the way they had them act, I don't know. It's just. I think it was, to me, it was the wrong move. I think what JD and Jesse said on their review on Off the Script last night, I think it's factual. I think they should have had Anna Jay feud with Ty first, and then after you have Ty beat Anna Jay, then you have Anna Jay join the side. Like, she can't beat Ty on her own, even with help. And then you have Anna Jay realize, well, if I can't beat Ty and win her back to my side, then I'll join her side. You shouldn't have just had this be something to where Ty confronts her the week before and say, hey, if you make if you made certain changes, you might get more time. It's like, you should have done more. And, they didn't. And I think they ran, and I think along with a lot of folks, feel that they probably ran to this, too soon. And I know people might say, well, maybe there's more to it. Maybe Anna Jay's setting up Ty Conte. Maybe she's in cahoots with Ruby and thus setting Ty up to trap her. And maybe that's true. We don't know. But we'll just have to see what occurs. We'll have to see what happens. But if there's one thing people will say about this overall main event is, some, like Solomonster, would say that they made the right decision because obviously we know the direction they're heading in with Jericho, right? A potential matchup with Moxley if Punk can't be back in time for All Out. And that might be the case, but then again, it's like how do I put this? You basically, you have the JAS get out of their cage. You have the BCC come out and confront them, fight them back to the back. You have Sammy come in and interfere. And what they did afterwards, and I think this is why, I think this is why the match fell off for a lot of people. Kind of felt, blah to a lot of people, a meh. And that's the fact that Kingston makes this big comeback after he loses, throws Jericho into the bed or the crate of barbed wire, the spider web, if you will. A lot of people view that and they're like, well, why couldn't they just have him do that towards the end? Instead of, Sammy reversing him, instead of Sammy reversing the Irish whip, of him and putting Eddie into the Judas effect with the barbed wire on Jericho's elbow, why couldn't they just, have the reverse happen? Or not the reverse, but the reverse. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, Guevara was going to Irish whip Eddie first, Eddie reversed it, then Guevara reversed it again. Why couldn't you just have the reverse Eddie did be what, causes Guevara to run into the barbed wire, and then that allows, Eddie to get the win, find a way to roll up Jericho, maybe hit him with his back fist and get the win, 1, 2, 3. Why couldn't they, people were looking at me like, why couldn't you do that instead of, save Eddie's getting the last laugh, be the last person standing deal towards the end? Again, it just felt like it was a little off, and it just felt like, something was missing. And that the only way they can make up all of that is to overbook it. The way they did. And still that just doesn't make sense. Because now a lot of people are looking at the fact that, okay, wait a minute. Jericho won a match, Eddie won a match. Eddie won Blood and Guts, Jericho won this. They're 2-2. You got to have a blow off. And that's what a lot of people are feeling we're heading towards. But I think what we're heading towards, if anything, because here's the thing, if Tony Khan is about the people, if he is about, this company being about the fans, then he's going to have to rectify this. And I think what he needs to do by rectifying this, is he needs to do this. He needs to make a triple threat match, a three-way dance, a three-way hardcore dance, in my opinion. At All Out, between Moxley, Jericho, and Kingston for the interim championship if Punk can't be back in time. That's what he needs to do. If Punk is not medically cleared to get back in the ring by All Out, which a lot of folks like Solomonster are feeling he might be. If not, though, I think the best solution is a three-way dance. no disqualification and all that, with Moxley defending against Jericho in Kingston, and the winner of that can go to the next big event, the next Battle of the Belts, the next Arthur Ashe Stadium event, whatever you want to call it, to face Punk in a unification. Or either you hold it off until full gear. But honestly, I feel like that's the best direction to go in for them. I really do. Because again, a lot of people look at this entire night of Dynamite last night and they kind of have the reaction of, hey, this match, this opening match was good, this segment was good, everything else, meh. To them it wasn't their best Dynamite. And again, I don't know if maybe it's because of the fact that, they were in Duluth, Georgia, home of the NWA, home of WCW, still loyal to them to a T. I don't know if it was because of that. I don't know if maybe it's because they didn't have a sellout. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is this. The fact is this. The AEW, they are still a very young company. And they have a lot to learn. They're putting here's the thing. They're doing all these themed events. Like next week they're doing Fight for the Fallen, right? They're doing Fight for the Fallen next week. Maybe the next 2 weeks, who knows. But they're doing Fight for the Fallen. They need to learn that even when you put on these, I guess you could say these super shows, for free on TBS, along with the Battle of the Belts quarterly shows on TNT, that you need to really emphasize, how big, how important this event is, this night is, this edition of Dynamite is, this quarterly special of AEW is. You got to emphasize that. And when you drag your feet in sloth right into a main event that people are looking forward to, even if it's themed alongside your parent companies, well, I wouldn't say parent company, but your television parent company's theme for that week, it's not a good look for you. And not just that, but the timing. One thing that everybody did agree on was the time pacing. It felt like the timing was off. It felt like the pacing of the time was off. And if that's the case, they need to work better on that. They really do. I mean, when you're going to have a show on the East Coast, whether it's Northeast, straight up East, Southeast, whatever, if you're going to have a show in the Eastern time zone, then don't start it at 8 o'clock. Okay? Don't start it at 8 o'clock in the evening. It's your prime show. No. Don't do that. What you do is you start it at 7. You want to get your dark elevation matches out of the way, start those at 6. You want to get your Rampage match, start that at 6:30 or whatever. The point, as a matter of fact, start it at 5. Okay, or 5:30 at least. You want to do your elevation matches and all that, start it at 5 o'clock. Which would be like, 4, 3, 2 here on the West Coast? 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 on the East. If you're going to do Eastern shows, start at 5 o'clock. Start at 5 o'clock. Then you do an hour's worth of Dark Elevation. You do your hour's worth of Rampage at 6 Eastern, and then you do your Dynamite at 7. And there you go. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Or you do your Elevation at 5. You do, Rampage, not Rampage, but Dynamite at 6. And then at 8 o'clock you do Rampage. There you go. There you go. That way, by timing it correctly, or by starting around those time frames, you know what? You're not so pressured for time. Because when you're starting at 8 o'clock in the evening, and yeah, I know it's the summer, but when you start at 8 o'clock in the evening on the East Coast, 5 here on the West, and you don't get done to at least 11 overall, people are going to be tired. People are going to be tired. And here's the thing too. How is the time restraint, how is that so hard to work around? How is the time restraint so hard? Hasn't TBS, the Turner Network, said, hey, we'll let you ride this for as long as you can, just like they did with Blood and Guts a couple weeks ago? I'm just saying. Because that doesn't seem to make any sense to me, that suddenly you have to be, pushed for time. I don't get it. I don't get it, and I know that's going to be something that fans are going to want them to fix and address quickly and improve on. Because when you're rushing for time, even with your main event, and you want to get all the excuse my language, Lord, here, but you want to get all your shit in the match and afterwards, that doesn't help a lot of people, and it still makes you look, and I hate to say this, very amateurish. Again, I know they are still young, like I said, and they got a lot to learn. But hopefully the next time they do something like this, a barbed wire everywhere match, or some kind of hardcore match of any kind, that the next time they do this, they pace it out right, and they don't overbook it. And if you want my honest truth, Tony Khan, if you're listening, you want my honest truth? Don't book a match like this in a place like Duluth, Georgia, the Atlanta, Georgia region. Nothing against them. They're a great wrestling town, a great wrestling territory. But those people, those fans there, are still loyal to NWA WCW. And they always will be. Even if the company is out of business, they will still be loyal to that. The NWA still makes their home in Georgia under Bill Corgan's ownership. So they still make, their home there. And so when you're coming onto their territory, yeah, you'll get a decent crowd, but you won't get a sellout. The way you're... Sorry about that. But the way you're hoping, you're not going to get that sellout, or you're going to get the reaction you want. Because those fans, they're not invested in AEW. They're invested in their own property, in their own companies. So if I'm you, Tony Khan, the next time I want to book a match like this, I save it for Philadelphia. I save it for the hardcorest of wrestling cities. Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, Texas. I save it for one of those areas. Not for an area that's mostly known for support, past and present and future of the NWA and WCW. And I think that's what hurt the crowd, and I think that's what hurt it a lot. Again, the match lived up to what it said it was going to be about, but still, I think what brought it down was pretty much the predictability of something was going to happen. And thus seeing that, you kind of knew things might get overbooked, and it was. It's just a lot of, you kind of knew you kind of had a clue that even though it was going to be an entertaining match in the eyes of some, it was not going to be living up, and from a barbed wire usage standpoint, it lived up to its hype, but that it wasn't in the long run going to live up to the expectations you were hoping for, and the crowd, unfortunately, didn't help it. So, hopefully, they learn from this, and the next time he wants to do a barbed wire everywhere like match, save it for the hardcorest of cities, in my opinion. But yeah, they still have a lot to learn.